So it says here, the table at the right shows the relationship between the amount of practice a basketball player does during a week and the number of points scored during a Saturday morning pickup game. Okay. Now, one says, use Desmos.com to find the linear regression equation for your data. Write the equation below, round to 2 decimal places. So I think you guys are all on Desmos. Are you guys all in here? All right, this is where we're supposed to be. Now, in the box of your notes, okay, so in your notes, it says here, how to find a regression equation. Anna Sophia's not here. Parker, help us read number 1, please.
Go to Desmos.com, click on the blue graphing calculator.
Beautiful. Number 2, please, Grace, help us read.
Press the plus sign and insert a table.
Perfect. All right, everyone, press the plus sign. Where is the plus sign? Left or right side? Left. Okay. Insert a table. See, easy peasy. We just have to follow instruction. Number 3, Court, can you help me read number 3, please?
Enter your data into the table.
What data are they talking about? What data? From where? Uh-huh.
Your data on the paper.
Yeah, all right, everyone, you have it already. Enter it in. Take a minute. Enter that all in, please. You guys already have all the data entered in? Okay. You all have your notes. If you don't have one, go grab one. Okay, so Lauren, let me know when you're done entering the data. Are you done, hon? Okay, then we're gonna go read next to see what it says. Can you help us, Lauren, read number 4?
In the box below the table, type
Okay, so guys, it's saying type this exactly. It means this right here, okay? So when you type that, and then in Desmos, it looks like this. Okay, so type the highlight just like that. So go back, type that exactly. Where do we get that wavy line, guys? In the next box. So in the next box here. Where do we get the wavy line? Where do we get that wavy line? It says Y1, and then there's this thingy. Where's that wavy little thing? Where should we find it? Raise your hand if you can help me with that. Grace?
on mine, it's like next to the 1 button and click shift.
You are correct. So guys, next to the 1 button, you do have to press shift. Perfect. Enter it in. Okay. So Juliana, can you tell me what to enter again?
Oh, like the Y.
Yeah, so tell me, just read exactly what the note said. Why what?
Y1.
Y1.
The squiggly sign.
Yep. Shift. Left side is number 1.
AX.
AX.
1.
1 plus B. Do we all have something that looks like this? Guys, also zoom in and out to see a better graph if you need to, okay? Then number 5. Emma, can you help us read number 5, please? All right, so for this one, the instruction said here to round to 2 decimal places. Even though in decimal is using that wavy little line, for us, we are using y equals, okay, not the wavy. Y equals mx plus b. So students, you need to get the m from your decimals and your b value from your decimals. So Sibby, based on your decimal, round to 2 decimal places, hon. Give me the m value, the slope.
From the graph?
From the decimal, where it says, did you enter in the y1?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
What does m say on yours?
0.976.
So if it's 2 decimal places, round it to me. 0.9 what?
7.
Someone confirm that for me? Yes or no? Is that the slope? Remember, we all have to have the same number because we all enter in the same data. So what is that? No, there's an M. Well, what is our M really? Guys, ours is slope. So based on this right here, what should M be? What variable is the same as M? A, yeah. Right, guys? So, by the way, let's check mine and yours. Is your A the same as my A? So, is your A the same as that A? Well, actually, can you bring me your A, Sibby?
0.3198.
Perfect. Now, let's just round to 2 decimal places.
32.
Let me go back to my notes. 0.32. Is that okay? Do we all have that before we go further? So, guys, the location of your slope, it's always in front of what variable? In front of what variable is the slope? X, that's it. Okay. All right, now we need to find the b value. The b value is your y-intercept. So, Jasmine, based on your decimal, round to 2 decimal places, what is the y-intercept? 2.89. Someone confirm? Okay, these are just decimal doing the work for you. Okay, so now, students, the rest of the questions on this note will be based on this equation. So how important is it to get the right equation? Super, because everything else is based on it, okay? Okay, number 2 in the note said, Ethan, help us read number 2, please.
What is the slope of the linear regression?
Perfect. The slope. So, Ethan, what is the slope?
0.32.
Perfect. 0.32. Okay. Number 3, Haley, help us read number 3, please.
In a complete sentence, interpret the slope for this scenario.
Okay, so we have to interpret the slope based on the scenario. Remember, we already talked about the scenario earlier. It said a table at the right shows the relationship between the amount of practices a basketball player does during a week. So X represents what? What does X represent? Hours of what? Of practicing, yep. Okay. And I mean, Y represents what? Okay. And the number of points scored during a Saturday morning pickup game. So what's Y? What is Y? Point score. You are correct. We need to know what inputs and outputs, guys, represent for us to write our sentence. So if the slope is 0.3 over 2, the slope is always rise over what? Run, okay? So let's spell all of these out. So M is rise over run. And guys, rise really represent what variable? Y, okay? So that means the change in Y, because it's Y2 minus Y1, right guys? Change in Y's divided by the change in what? X. Okay. Well, Y represents what? Point score. What does X represent? Hours what? Yep. Perfect. Hours spent up. So when you guys have a slope of 0.32, would you guys all agree that could be made into a fraction of 0.32 over 1? Yes or no? Well, remember, the numerator is rise, and rise is point score. Is it okay to write 0.32 of a point? No, so we should write this in whole number. How do we convert a decimal into whole number? What decimal place is 0.32? Tenths or hundredths? How do we make 0.32 into a whole number? We times it by 100. Whatever we multiply to the top, we multiply to the bottom. So it's 32 over what? 100, yeah. And let's reduce that. They're both even. Let's reduce by 2. So 32 divided by 2, Jake S, is what? 32 divided by 2, because we're trying to reduce. Good. And then Jake, 100 divided by 2? Good. They're both even still. So let's reduce some more. So Tyler's not here. Tyler's here. Never mind. Tyler, 16 divided by 2? 8. And then 50 divided by 2, Tyler? 25. Okay. Is that as far as we can go in reducing? Student, that it's the same as 0.32, but now it makes more sense because they're whole numbers. So in a complete sentence, that's your slope. So how many points earned from how many hours of practice? 8 points will be score when the player practiced how many hours? Perfect. So go ahead and write that for me. The player score eight points when 25 hours were spent practicing. Would you guys agree? And again, you don't have to write it like this, but somewhat in that realm of context. Number 4, Kyle, can you help us with number 4, please?
What is the y-intercept of your linear regression?
Perfect. So Val, from your linear regression, what is the y-intercept? Right, 2.89. So students, y-intercept is when x equals 2. So what? 0. Okay, again, in a complete sentence, what would that number mean in this context? Again, y in this context in represents what?
Point score.
Correct. Can we say, what does it mean when you have an x value of 0?
0 hours spent practicing.
Yeah, when the player doesn't practice. About how many points is he going to score? About 3, right? We don't want to say 2.89 because that's not going to make really sense. So we're going to round it in normal rounding rule, okay? So when a player does not practice, okay, he, she, they can or will score. Will score about how many points?
3.
About 3. Perfect. Okay. Can you help us, Brad, read number 6?
Use your linear regression equation to predict the number of points scored during the game when the player has practiced 30 hours. Write your answer as a completion.
Perfect. So 30 hours, Sophia. Should we plug that in for X or Y? Perfect. We're going to plug that in for X. Sophia, what was the equation that we got from linear regression again? Y equals what? I can't hear you. Yeah, 0.32, right? Wasn't the slope 0.32? Yeah, 8129 is fine. X time plus, what was the decimal at the end? Perfect. All right, so I'm going to plug point. So y equals 0.32 times 30 hours plus 2.89. Go ahead and use your calculator. Punch all the decimals in. Give me the decimal answer first, and then we'll write it using whole number, approximation of whole number. All right, everybody punch it in. Before you write the answer in your notes, can you please compare your answer in your group first? We all have to have the same answer here before we can. Remember, you're going to need this skill for your project, so write detailed notes. Press this button, do that button. Hannah, whenever you have your decimal answer, can you give it to me? 12.49. 12.49, okay. Okay, so that's our decimal answer, but it wants us to write it as a complete sentence, okay? So when a player practices for how many hours? 30. Okay. When a player practices for 30 hours, okay, how many points earned? How many points scored? About 12. Yep, he, she, they score about. Yeah, that's why we use the word about, okay, to kind of approximate about 12 points. Perfect. Now we're going to do regression, but guess what? What's the next one? Quadratic. Let's move on. Last notes, y'all. Guess what? You do exactly the same thing. Okay, so now how do we clear it out is we go here, we X out everything that we have. So can you see there's an X right there? Just X it out. Okay, there's an X on the top here. X that out. It's a blank canvas. How do we insert a table again? What do we press? Good. Ethan, how do we insert a table?
Press the plus.
Good. Press the plus. After that, what do you do, Ethan? All right. Perfect. Everybody, input in your data. So wait till you guys enter in your data. Now in the box, it tells you guys how to write your quadratic regression. Okay, so all the data is in. Jake G, whenever you're ready, let me know if you're done entering the data, okay? Okay, I'm gonna go back to the notes. As you can see here, students, can you guys see the steps are all exactly the same? Except number 4. Number 4 says, in the box below your table, enter this in. Okay, so now it is no longer linear, students. It is now a quadratic equation. So in the box, enter in just like that, just the way it looks. Okay, go ahead and enter it in. And then in your group, can you guys share the value you guys have for A, H, and K? So that way, remember, these all values have to match. If it's not matching, that means somebody's entering the wrong piece of data. So out loud, go ahead, share each other. A is, H is, and K. Okay, so guys, I enter my data, I enter my equation, but I have a line. I have a line. Is my computer broken? No. How can I get what you guys have? What should we have? We have what, guys? A parabola, but I only have a line on my computer. It must be broken. Zoom out. Yes, guys, if you have a line, zoom out. Okay. Remember, make sure you enter your equation in the box below your scatter plot, okay? So we all should have something that looks like this. We all should also have a curve that's graph for us. So if you don't, make sure you guys enter in your equation on the box below. Yes, let's over there. Yeah, plug it in. All right, so here we go. Now we are going to enter this in, okay, in our equation that says, a group of students built a catapult to launch a bouncy ball. They launched it twice and recorded the data from the launch in the table on the right. Use decimal to find the quadratic regression equation for your data. Write the equation below, round to 2 decimal places. So as you can see here, students, we're going to write our normal vertex equation for the quadratic. So normally we have y equals a times x minus h quantity square plus k. Decimal gave you the values for a, h, and what? K. Yep. We just have to fill those in. So from your decimal, Jillian, what value of a did you get? Round to 2 decimal places if needed. Okay, someone confirm. Okay. Chris, what value did you get for h? 52.84. Lonnie, did you confirm that for me? Yeah, and then what do you get for k? 83. Okay. Keely, can you confirm that number for me? Yes. Okay. The reason is that we all have to have the same number, right? Because if it's not, then the rest of the parts will be incorrect. All right, Keely, can you help me with number 2?
Yes. What is the vertex of the quadratic regression?
Perfect. So, do we already have it, guys? Do we have the vertex already? Yeah, the vertex is always h comma. Okay. So, based on that, Annalise, what is the h comma k? What's the final answer for number 2? Beautiful. Good job. Okay. Now, in a complete sentence, what does that tell you about the path? Okay. About the path of the ball being shot out of the catapult. So the path mean, is it linear, right? Is it quadratic or parabolic? Parabolic means also this. So which path are you going to write? Is it a straight line shooting out of the catapult? Or is it parabolic? Parabolic, okay? So in a complete sentence. So the path of the ball is parabolic. Okay. Number 4, Cam. Can you help me with number 4, Cam?
What is the y-intercept for the quadratic regression?
Great. So Cam, y-intercept is when x equals to what?
0.
Good. Y-intercept is when x equals to 0. So students, we do have to solve for this. So y equals negative 0.02. 0 minus 52.84 is negative 52.84, and we have to square it. Then we need to add 45.83. Use your calculator. All you have to do is punch all of those in. I would do the negative 52.84 in quantity and square that first. Okay, and then multiply to negative 0.02. Get an answer. Then when you get an answer, then add at the end. So everyone, calculate your y-intercept. Please compare your answers before we write it in our notes. Once you have an answer, share it. JP, do you have a calculator now? Go grab one, please. If you don't have a calculator, please go grab one. Share your answers once you have it, guys. This is confirmed.
You should just do the same answer.
On the other side? First, we're going to have a positive and negative answer. Negative, okay. Remember, if you have a graphing calculator, you can type it all in at once, but if you don't, just do it step by step, okay? Hey, Devin, what answer did you come up with? Positive and negative? You have positive? Devin has positive. No. Is negative or positive? So guys, when you enter this and you calculate it, this is a negative quantity and it's square, right? A negative number, when you square it, what would you get? Positive. So that should come out to be a positive big number. Would you guys agree? And then times it by negative 0.02, then that becomes a negative answer. And the negative answer plus 45.83. So so check it again. Make sure you guys compare your answers, guys, before we write it as a class. Everybody should have the same answer. If you don't, figure out what happened. Should we get negative still? Yeah, that's okay. Okay, so. But more importantly, we need to practice how to get it. Okay, so. Zoe, what did you get for y-intercept? Negative 10.01, like this? Okay, perfect. So we're going to write it. Y-intercept, students, is when x equals to 0. So 0, comma, negative 10.01. Box it up. In a complete sentence. Now we have to figure out what that means. So in this context, x represents what? Let's go back to the box. Okay, so the data here, what does x represent in our data? The distance, what kind of distance? It looks like they're both distances. X represents what? What kind of distance? Distance from the catapult. So is that horizontal distance? For x. Yeah. Y represents what? The height of the ball. So guys, let's just pretend that this table is the location of your catapult. So if it's this length, then the ball is this length, right? Where the ball is at. Does that make sense so far? So the ball distance from the catapult is where the ball is at on horizontally. And then the y is how high it is. Okay? So for us to say that the y-intercept is 0, negative 10.01. Again, what does x represent? X is 0. But what does it represent in this context? The distance from the catapult is 0. Where's the height?
So I think it means when there is no distance from the catapult, when it's at the catapult, then it's negative 10.01.
Okay, so in an application, we have to see if it makes sense, right, guys? Does this number make sense? No. Would you agree the catapult should be above ground? If it's above ground, it should be 0 or higher. Would you guys agree with that statement? A negative height means it's below the ground. So this number, it does mean when the ball is at the catapult, right? It's underground about how many feet? 10, okay? So when the ball is at the catapult, the height is about 10 feet underground. Does that make sense? This does not make sense in this context. Okay. I'm going to check that number again to make sure.
52.84 square.
Number 6. Holden, can you help us read number 6, please? Okay, so x-intercept Holden is when y equals to what?
0.
Perfect. So students, we're going to set y equals to 0, and we solve for x. So 0 equals negative 0.02 times the quantity x minus 52.84 squared plus 45.83. So we are going to solve for x. To solve for x, students, we will subtract 45.83 from both sides. Okay, so that will get us negative 45.83 here on the left side. Equals negative 0.02 times the quantity of x minus 52.84 squared. Out of space, I'm going to go over here. Next, we are going to divide, students, both sides by negative 0.02. So use your calculator, please. Negative 45.83 divided by negative 0.02. Please share your answer with each other before we are called to answer it over here. So once you have a number, can you throw it out with your root? So now negative 45.83 divided by negative 0.02. Positive or negative answer? Positive. Okay, Hannah, what's your positive answer? Can you try it again, please? Negative 45.83 divided by negative 0.02. 2,291.1. One more time. 0.5. Someone confirm? Okay, thank you so much. Good job. All right, so now that equals to students the quantity of x minus 52.84 squared. Students, how do we undo the power of 2? We are going to do a square root. Okay, so find the square root button, students, and do square root 2291.5. Okay, again, when you have an answer, compare it. Go through the steps together, guys. This is practicing how to use a calculator. Use a calculator. You can't use that on your quiz. Go get a calculator, Cam. Over there. Sam, whenever you have an answer, square root of 2291.5 is what, Sam? Oh, there, Beth. Wait, 47 point, 2 decimal places. So what was that? 87. Someone confirm that before I go further? Yeah. All right. But when we take a square root, we should have 2 answers, plus and minus. Yep. Every time we take a square root ourselves, student, we should have 2 answers. Okay. One more step is to add 52.84 from both sides. Okay. So when we add it from both sides, students, it will create how many answers? 2. One is a plus 47.87. So add 52.84. That will give us first equation here. And the other one will be the minus part because it's a minus 48. So you guys compute both these. So use your calculator, punch it in. Compare your answers first before we write it in our notes. All right, Val, for the addition, what did you end up getting? 0.7 what? 71? Is that okay? Subtraction, Sophia, what did you end up getting? That's okay. I think we should have a positive because 52 is bigger than 47. Heather? 4.97. Someone confirm, deny? All right, so x-intercept guy is when y goes to 0, so we'll write it in that way, 100.71, comma 0. Second answer is 4.97, comma 0. Box those up. You have 2 answers. Okay. Now we have to write complete sentence on that, what that means. So back to the context. What does x represent in this question? Horizontal distance, right? What does y represent? The height of the ball. Well, the height of the ball is what? 0. What does that mean? There's no height. That means the ball is on the ground. Okay, so why do we have 2 answers then? Okay, one guess would be bounce. That's a great guess. Remember, in a parabola, right? Think about it. In a parabola, it's on the ground because
It starts at the end.
would you guys agree? Yeah. The smaller value is when it starts, okay, and the large value is when it ends. Okay. So this catapult starts when the ball is about how many feet from the catapult? 5, right? So the ball starts about 5 feet from the catapult, and it lands 101 feet from the catapult. Does that make sense so far? That's what it means, okay? So This launch starts when the ball is, so this launch starts when the ball is about 5 feet from the catapult and lands about how many feet? 101? About 101 feet, okay, away. Number 8, we're going to correct a little bit just because in here we have seconds, but X is not seconds. X in this is feet from the catapult. 8 says, use your quadratic regression equation to predict the height of the rocket, the height of the ball, so cross that out, of the ball, 3 feet from the catapult. So cross out those, please, and insert those corrections in. So how do we find this? What are we looking for? X, Y. We are going to look for what? What are we looking for? We have to know what we're looking for. What we have. What do we have? X or Y? Sam? We have X. We're looking for Y. Do we have an equation to look for those? Yeah, let's plug it in. Go ahead and use your regression equation. Since my regression equation is all the way above. Hey, Brad, what's the regression equation again so I know what to plug in? Y equals to what?
Y equals negative 0.02 and then X minus 52.84 squared plus 45.83.
45 point. Perfect. Every time we see an X in, we are going to plug in what? 3. All right, let's do it. Y equals negative 0.02. 3 minus 52.84 square plus 45.83. All right, just want to do one step at a time, okay? Kyle, what is 3? Take away 52.84, Kyle. Just that value. Positive or negative? Negative. 49. One more time. 49 point what? You guys agree? Negative. Is it agree, disagree? Yes, no, maybe so? Okay. We're going to square it. Next. What do we do next, guys? Based on PEMDAS. We take that number and do what? Square it. All right, square it. Take that number, square it. If it's a negative number and you square it, you should have a positive answer. So Tyler, what is negative 49.84 square, bud? Should be a large number, I think. If you want to get ahead, go ahead and take that number times 0.2.
It's 2,484. 2,400.
There's no decimal?
0.02.
0.02. Like that? Check my writing. Okay. So times it by 0.2, Tyler, since you have the decimal. Just times it by negative 0.2. 0.02, I'm sorry. 6, 8. Negative or positive? But are you multiplied by negative 0.02? So that should be a negative? Someone confirm that before we go further? Yeah? And then we're going to add it to 45.83. So that comes out to be what? Should be a negative number, right, guys? Double check that for me. Okay, negative what? Anybody? What is it? Negative 3.85. Ooh, okay. So, we have to analyze to see it makes sense because we have to write this in a complete sentence, okay? This is a y. Y represents what? Grace? Right. The height of the ball is 4 feet underground. Would this make sense? No, it will not. And the reason too, can you guys see that it starts about 5 feet from the catapult, right? So when you're less, based on the graph, okay? So in algebra, you're going to find values of everything. Does that make sense so far? X, you plug in X, you get some value of Y. That does not mean that it's going to make sense in certain contexts. So we will write a complete sentence and we will state that it does not make sense in this context. When the ball is how many feet from the catapult? It's 3 feet from the catapult. The height is about 4 feet underground, under the ground, which in this context, it makes sense or does not make sense? Doesn't. Which in this context, it does not make sense. All right, guys, that's the end of our notes for the semester.